Right, let's bring in a professor of finance and capital markets at Nasarawa State University, Uwaleke. Rise Exchange anchor, Boason Omofaye is also joining us all the way from Lagos. Good to see you both. Let me start with you, Prof, right here in the studio. Well, you had the BDCs there saying, look, we had to shut down, hoping that it will bring down the value of the dollar. But on the other hand, we heard from the Central Bank of Nigeria actually warning commercial banks, to watch what they're doing with forex hoarding. What do you think is responsible for this unavailability of the dollar?
Well, Ngozi, if you look at historical evidence, it's also true that this period is usually associated with, high exchange rates on account of huge demand for invisibles. People tend to look for dollar, this period to be able to pay fees. And even for firms, a lot of them, this is the time to restock. This is the time to also, get in raw material. So
when you say this period, let's be clear. Is it Christmas to January?
Oh, yes.
Season? Okay,
yes,
just to be clear.
Schools are resuming, abroad. So, but that's not to also take away the fact that a lot of artificial demand is taking place, which is why the central bank governor at the other day was saying that the Naira is undervalued, and to a large extent I agree with him. That is because if you can remove the speculative element in the demand for dollar, okay, the true value of the Naira will emerge, and that's certainly going to be below what it is today. Of course, you notice that following the, if you like, the raft of circulars we've seen from the central bank in the last few days, the one, for example, removing the exchange rate band for international money transfer operators, of course, meant to incentivize the inflows. You also have the one meant for banks to discourage them from holding if you like, long positions. It's now set at 0. So some of these have also helped to kind of moderate the exchange rate. We saw today that the Naira, going by reports, tried to rally on the back of these developments, including the decision by NMPC to also mop up some of the accounts they have in commercial banks, into the central bank. But let me also say this, with respect to the BDCs, I think it's also time for the central bank to see how they can sanitize that sector. I also think the number of BDCs are too many or too unwieldy for the central bank to manage. Over 5,500 BDCs operating. And one of the reasons the BDCs gave, listening to watching that for shutting down, is the volatility. Okay, so the volatility is really a problem now, and in my view, the solution, what I would recommend to the central bank to do, is to move, kind of consider, switching from the inflation targeting objectives, which the central bank governor mentioned, the other day, that is going to be the framework for monetary policy. Inflation targeting presupposes that you don't pursue any other target. Okay, one of the conditions for inflation target is that inflation is what you focus on. You don't focus on any other target, whether it's employment, whether it is growth, whether if it's exchange rate. Okay, so it excludes these other objectives. Now, so what I would advise central bank to do at this time, given the urgency, is to switch to exchange rate targeting framework. Exchange rate targeting framework is a situation in which the central bank will now decide the target exchange rate it desires, okay, and then attempt to the variant of that is maybe the crawling peg. You have a band within which you expect the exchange rate to fluctuate, and what that means is that you should also have some level of reserves with which you can intervene in the market from time to time. So I don't think it is right for Nigeria, for us at this time, to say we are leaving the fate of the Naira completely to market forces.
All right, okay, let me bring in Boason. Boason, this is deja vu for you. We always come back to asking you these questions and listening to Professor Uwaleke and the Bureau de Change representative there. The big question many will be asking is the CBN a little bit confused here? Because sometimes with such policies or statements, we get to see the Naira make some little bit of, relative gains, and thereafter is a free fall.
Well, I'm trying to get the entire question into my head very clearly, but I think I align a little bit with what Professor Uwaleke said about exchange rate targeting. We need to focus on exchange rate. We need to deal with inflation as well, not only from the monetary policy side, but also from the fiscal authority side. I think we've seen actions from the Central Bank of Nigeria. We've seen some pronouncements in terms of circulars being issued. I think it is good to also hear from the Minister of Finance and the Coordinating Minister of the Economy what is happening as far as supporting the Naira, as far as supporting the currency, the exchange rate market, in terms of what the fiscal authorities bring into the table. Apart from the last statement that we heard from the Minister of Finance, Mr. Wale Edo, that the Nigeria will be going back to the World Bank to borrow a certain amount, $1.8 billion, and most likely whether we'll be going back to the Eurobond market later this year. We haven't heard anything significantly from them. And I think we need to hear very strongly from the fiscal authorities as far as the exchange rate and the fate of the Naira is concerned. This is about saving the Naira, but let's put it that way. We need to do everything possible to save the local currency. That is our own currency. It's a currency we have to be proud of. It's in a very troubled state. But the destruction of the Naira is not just happening today, not within the last 8 years, not within the last 20 years. The Naira had been systematically destroyed over several decades of Nigeria's history. So where we are today is just that we've just hit the bottom of the barrel, in a manner of speaking, in which there's nothing left for us. So that is where we are today. How we work our way back up will be very quickly through productivity, and productivity. The central bank and the Minister of Finance and others need to come up very quickly with something for foreign investors to chew. And that has to happen around privatization. We need to put some carefully and well-designed instruments out there that can help us bring in some from foreign currency that will stay in this economy. We need to make investors happy, not just with exchange rate, but to show them that we know what we are doing and that we're doing something very important and something well that has both short, medium-term and long-term benefits. We need to show our hands to the international business and investment community, not only those who are portfolio investors, but businessmen as well as other key investors, that we know what we're doing as far as managing the economy is concerned. We need to drive this on both sides, on both engines. The central bank is driving it right now. We have a whole lot of circulars from the last administration that we have to roll back as far as FX is concerned. But I also want to see a lot of action taking place from the fiscal authority. I haven't seen that happen, and that needs to happen very, very quickly. We need to bring everyone on board. Not just talking, but also give me some policy actions that are workable, that will galvanize the market, that will get investors to become more interested in Nigeria, to see us beyond the current problems and see opportunities, potentials, promise, and money down the line. We need to open that window of hope to international and local investors. All of these have to happen simultaneously. So this is not just a job for the central bank to do by rolling back some of those extant policies on whether it's 2.5% for IMT, international money transfer operators and others, but we also need to see concrete actions from those who are in charge of running the economy right at the center.
Right, and Professor Uwaleke, is that what's missing, that economy handlers may not just know exactly what to do? I mean, putting out all kinds of fires when the fundamental issues are not addressed. You heard Boason there say, look, it's about productivity. How do you shore up a currency where there's absolutely, no productivity in the economy?
Absolutely. You see, Ngozi, this issue is something you take over the short term, the medium term, and the long term. Of course, the only sustainable solution to fixing the forex challenge is productivity, just as Boason mentioned. If you look at our the last GDP report, quarter 3, 2023, manufacturing sector is just doing 0.48%. Agri sector 1.3%. Okay, so the real sector of the economy isn't doing well, and against that backdrop, you wouldn't expect to see significant improvement in your forex, especially when you're not exporting. Now, what I said before bears repeating, and I want to reiterate, before I move on to another point I have to say. I talked about short term, medium term, and long term. Right. In the short term, in the near term, what do we need to do?
That's the point.
And I've just said, Central Bank of Nigeria governor in November was talking about inflation targeting. And I've told you the conditions for inflation targeting, one of which is, of course, the central bank must have instrument independence, which means we should be able to use any instrument at its disposal to bring down inflation. Okay, but again, it also means that it shouldn't pursue any other objective. But given what is the current situation, I think this is the time to switch from that inflation targeting to exchange rate targeting, because at the end of the day, exchange rate will also feed into, we have a pass-through to inflation.
Exchange rate targeting would be what exactly?
Yes, exchange rate targeting. Yeah. For example, look at what we have even used in the 2024 budget, 800 Naira to the dollar. Okay, well, the central bank could decide to target that. At least one advantage that we have is that the budget 2024 is not even dislocated. As we speak, that budget, the entire budget document that is premised on $800 per barrel, has become, if you like, unimplementable. Because what it means is that with exchange rate at even official window at over 1,400 Naira, it calls for even a revision of the budget, and it's too early in the year. So, except there is a conscious effort on the part of the central bank to target that range, maybe have that range, okay? Your entire short-term plan, which is your budget, is rendered useless. And of course, central bank can't do that alone. Central bank, must do that in conjunction with the, fiscal authority. I've just told you the impact it's going to have on the budget. Right. But one thing again, I think the government should quickly do is, with this current situation now, by the time you see FAC allocation in the month of January, you're going to see a huge jump.
Let me bring in Boason, because it looks as if year in, year out, we're just papering over cracks or running away from the issues. Boason, every time we talk about productivity, let's look at Saudi Arabia as an example, or the UAE. They have a major source of income, which is petroleum. So sometimes when they talk about diversification, we keep asking the question, why is it that Nigeria is quite different? So we also have the same thing that these countries do have, yet we're in dire straits.
Well, what Saudi Arabia and the Middle East economy, most of them that were oil exporters, done was to simply invest their dollar earnings from crude oil into tangible source of revenue, tourism, open up a financial services space, entertainment, creative art, and everything else, to make themselves an investment destination. What we've not been able to do since independence was to spend our oil proceeds to build an economy. So what we've just done was to take the oil proceeds and spend it. We've not been able to invest it in an economy. And that's why we are today. It's a very simple. The road to the destruction, where we are today of the Naira, is very simple. We just take the oil proceeds and we just spend it. The UAE, the others, what they've done was to spend the oil money to build an economy. Because again, they look at this is a single product they have in the desert. And so, because being a monoproduct economy in a manner of speaking, and they find that product very tangible and it's a global product, what they did very quickly was to use it to build an economy on its own. oil proceeds alone does not make you a good economy. And we have seen this problem across Africa. Extracting a fund from iron ore, from gold and diamond. You have gold in Ghana. Ghana is not a world-class economy by any stretch of imagination. Cocoa, Ivory Coast produce cocoa, which is the world cocoa producer, but Ivory Coast is not a world-class economy. And you find that across the continent. So we've got this problem to deal with, not just in Nigeria, but across Africa, in which we just extract these mineral resources on the ground, under the ground, and we just sell it and we just spend the proceeds. We haven't been able to sit down to build an economy around our resource. And that is the key problem. So Nigeria needs to begin now to start that happening. We need to find a way to select what economy do we want to build and where do we find the money to build it. And that building of an economy is what will take us out on a long-term and a sustainable basis. What is the structure and the type of the economy that we have? We don't have it. So the little development that you've seen since independence to date was just that a little bit of a reflection of the spending of the oil money, basically speaking. Not that we have an economy. Ask me today, what is Nigeria's economy? Everyone say oil. We say it's agriculture. We don't even have an idea what it is. Well, so we don't have a character.
I think
so we need to have an economy that has a character.
And that's the whole essence. I asked the question there. You're spot on. And again, it boils down to corruption. We just had the Minister of Solid Mineral talking about those in extractive industry or in Nigeria, about 2 trillion naira. They extract, they don't get to pay. And you've highlighted this so much. So we're hoping that the government will look into this and see how they can plow back and actually dig in deep and get all those loopholes blocked.
Yes, Sulai, if I could throw this in very quickly, Sulai. I mean, Taiwo Yedele, the tax and fiscal policy chairman, says 81% of employed Nigerians are in non-productive sectors. You want to chew on that? Sulai, you can close the show.
We'd like to thank you for your time, Boason, Omofaye, and Professor Uwaleke. We really do hope we'll stay on this, and that we hope pretty much the government will kick in and do something better.